going on, guys? Today we have a Fortnite theory based video, what I think is going to happen going into next season, and using other theories that I found on Twitter and YouTube to kind of prove it and show that I ain't tripping. So let's get right into it. To start it off, we all know the cradle is on the middle of the map, just hovering there right over where the 0 point would be. Who is that? Immediately I think it's The Last Reality. Chapter 2 season 7, if you think back to that, who was trying to, they destroyed it actually, but who was that? The Last Reality. That's who I immediately think it is. And to back up my theory that it's The Last Reality, there's this concept theory map going around Twitter that has 2 spots of the Last Reality, 1 symbol in the bottom right, I forget what that is, same in the top left, I also don't know what that is, and then there's a spot for the Ancient Alliance right in the middle, right above one of the Last Reality spots, but that just confirms immediately that it's the Last Reality. But there's a theory going around that the Visitor Unknown is the last member of the 7 that is not corrupted or still like alive, you could say, chasing around the Voyager through space and time, trying to get revenge for what he's done. And I honestly think that's a pretty good theory. There's this guy named Funko Nico that wants to add to that with his own theory. I'll pop it up right here. As you may know, it's been leaked that the vault is going to be built at the end of the season, and that is true. There's leaked footage of it. I'll put some pictures of it right here. And the cradle just fixes the 0 point. Why is it doing that? We'll get to that. And this is all happening around the same time that we saw the vault for the first time in OG Chapter Season 8, and at the same time that we saw the aliens for the first time in Chapter 2 Season 7 and 8. Multiple realities coming into play. That means there's only one 0 point, and that's the one in our reality. It also says, what if the vault is the gateway to all these timelines? Inside, there is not a specific reality. That makes sense, honestly, because why would there be multiple 0 points if everyone's trying to get our 0 point? And let's go back a little bit to the Corrupted 7. Cyan YT, here's one of his tweets. I'm pretty sure he was the first one to tweet about this, to have this theory. But there is a leaked event or whatever through the gameplay of a red rift and the Visitor coming through that red rift. So we know that it's probably something to do with the Last Reality, something with the Corrupted 7, of him chasing the Voyager for whatever he did to the 7. And then we have another theory from this guy named Crimtame Dragado. Sorry if I chalked that, put his tweet up. He thinks it's something to do with Save the World. I think it means the Last Reality. But he says there was a few days ago, this image was posted by people who went to Epic HQ featuring TVs and Save the World footage on them. A day later, an Epic dev said this about Season 2. And he's talking about this tweet with Madison Beer right here. And then in this tweet, Ted Timmons says, well, I didn't have being tagged in this on my bingo card today. I hope she likes the upcoming Season 2. Some cool stuff in there for the OGs to enjoy. Come on now, so we're not being delusional. He kind of confirms it. And then there's also the triangle on the map that everybody knows in the bottom right. The triangle has 7 on it. So it has something to do with the 7 and probably the Last Reality. Like there's too many signs pointing towards it for it not to be. And here's a picture in game at Wonkyland showing the same TVs that we just saw a picture of in real life, also in game. It's just confirming it has something to do with OG stuff and probably the Last Reality. And then we have another tweet from Sentinel Central showing version 39.50 focused on the 7's return, launches in 9 days. So it's 100% something to do with the 7 and most likely with the Last Reality. And now we got the biggest theory of the whole video from Aligned Eclipse on Twitter, the Grand Loop. And this is just where everything basically gets confirmed. And it says, I think almost everything we believe about Fortnite's story is wrong. The Last Reality, the Sideways, Geno, even the nature of time itself. I think we've been looking at it wrong the whole time, basically. So he thinks everything we know about Fortnite right now is just completely wrong. And then for his next tweet, he says he thinks that the whole Omniverse is stuck in a time loop of just starting, ending, and restarting. And it's happened billions of times, he thinks. And he even has evidence of this, stating that it says total time simulated across all variations being 106 billion years. That's much longer than our own universe, around 7.7 times longer. So his theory might just be right based off of that. And his next tweet says, either time was somehow observed or reality repeated itself, and that he thinks every variation is just a full iteration of the Omniverse being born, lived, and reset, starting and ending with the Big Bang. That's honestly pretty good theory. And then his next tweet is, this is where the sideways comes in. I don't think the sideways is just another dimension or a weapon. I think it's a previous iteration of the one we are in now, one that lost its 0 point and began to rot instead of resetting properly. That makes so much sense, because why do they all look like things we have in our reality, but broken or corrupted type of thing? Look in the background, it just looks like hellfire, just like shit went to fucking dust. He's kind of saying what I just thought. Broken versions of structures, warped physics, unstable environments. It's because they lost their 0 point. What would have happened if we did? End up the next 3 tweets because they're about the same story. He thinks the last reality are remnants from this reality that escaped before the collapse, but what came at that cost? Losing their 0 point. Without it, their universe went into a apocalypse and it was just cooked. They don't want to conquer our reality, our universe. They just want to get the 0 point so they can fix or rebuild theirs. And to back up what he just said, he describes how Reality Zero is described as the last reality's greatest prize in the Cube Queen's pack. That honestly, just what more confirmation do you need? That's in the game. And to back it up even further, he says every last reality appearance, they're always trying to get the 0 point. It's always been about retrieval. Other theory stating that he doesn't think the last reality fleet is actually in our universe. He thinks they're stuck in the sideways, where someone has to be in our universe, opening a gate, a portal, to bring them through the sideways into our universe to get that 0 point. And then he goes on to say, with another theory, that he thinks the cubes aren't weapons. He thinks they're what's allowing them to get through each reality, which makes so much sense. To get through the sideways into our reality, they always need cubes. And then his next few tweets are saying that Kevin tried to do that himself and harvest the 0 point, but they couldn't do that with just 1 cube. But the Cube Queen succeeded with using multiple cubes, a lot of cubes. She opened the portal, and that's where they came in. And leading on from that, he thinks the Herald uses Chrome for the same reason. He thinks the Chrome can transport people through the reality. I kind of like that. I'm a little iffy on it, but I feel like it would do like about the same thing. That ties everything together. He thinks Geno is the nothing. That might sound crazy at first, but I think he's onto something. He thinks Geno is from the sideways version of our reality. Not our Geno, but a version of him who lived through billions of years of loops, resets, and failures. Eventually he realized his goal for perfection was just useless. And him having that realization broke him. It just broke him. His old view of perfection out the window. He created the last reality, not to save existence, but to end the loop itself. That makes pretty good sense. He thinks the nothing is Geno, a corrupted version of Geno, they're so similar. Geno already uses rock golems. What else more do you need? That's the best evidence you can get. And to recap everything he just said with this tweet right here, he says he doesn't think the last reality are just simple villains. He thinks they were survivors who were led by that God who watched his reality get restarted, reset, just too many times, and was driven by his new perspective of perfection. And to end it off with the last tweet, he says Reality Zero isn't special because it's strong. It's special because it hasn't collapsed yet. We still have our 0 point. So are we saying we're the only ones with our 0 point? Still intact, still not broken? That's kind of crazy. And then he says the last reality is entering the final phase, and for phase 2, and the grand loop is getting close to breaking. So we might be cooked. But what does that all prove? That it's the last reality. That it's something to do with the last reality in the 7. We ain't delusional. There's literally UFOs on the map. If you go down to a bunker type spot, everything is leading towards it. We're not delusional. I'm gonna end it off. We basically just confirmed that it is the last reality. It's something to do with the 7 and the Dark Voyager erupting the 7, and now we have the last one. the unknown visitor. So that's basically been confirmed. We'll see where it goes with in the next season if we're actually correct. But that's it for the video. Thank y'all for watching. Peace.